What's up, guys? You're watching another episode of the Iron Obsession podcast. I am back once again with Steve Gordon, and we're going to do a little Q&A episode and maybe talk about some other things today. We will later be joined by Dan Derryberry, but for now it's just going to be the two of us, and we're going to get to it. We're just going to kind of go over our weeks, any highlights that we've had since the last about week and a half since we talked. And you can go ahead and start, Steve. How's things been going for the past week and a half?
We were talking about it a little bit off.
the pre-show show.
Yeah, I'll just do a recap of what I said. So, finished coming down in weight and then holding there for a bit, and now I'm kind of like slowly, adding things back in: drugs, fun stuff, training, food a little bit more, and going up from there. So we touched on bloating and stuff like that. Thing that.
So what was your peak weight versus what your lowest weight you dropped down to was?
So peak weight 6 weeks ago, so this was only 6 weeks ago, was 209 was the peak weight. And I dropped down
5'7", right?
Yeah. And I dropped down to 187 and felt pretty good there. So felt pretty, like, I'm not lean, but I'm lean, but I'm not stage lean.
You did some good cleaning up, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And it felt good. So it did.
I'm horrible with math. So that's what, like 20 pounds or so?
Let's see. Add 3 on 2, so it gives me 190. So that's 13. 13 plus 9, that's 22. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I dropped down from about it's been, I think, 3 or 4 weeks into my cruise or so. Peak weight was close to 240. It wasn't exactly, but it was like knocking on the door 240. And then I dropped down to pretty much about 225. So that's what, like 15 pounds or so?
Yeah.
Yeah. So similar drops for us. And like you were saying off air, the difference in bloating once you take out something like Atlantis is insane. It's kind of, you realize it's happening while it's happening, but it's one of those things you don't really notice until it's gone. Like, and people like to say growth gut. It's not from growth, and I don't even think it's necessarily from insulin, because food comes down during these times as well once we cruise. So it's it's a perfect storm of multiple different elements, right? But I do think that the Atlantis has a big part to play in how our stomachs bloat. Maybe it's gastric emptying based. It's got to be something with it, because I've been on higher foods with just growth, and I've been on higher foods with growth Atlantis, and Atlantis seems to do something with it. But thankfully, it is temporary, because once you pull it out, it goes away almost immediately.
It does, and then it comes back immediately. Like I was saying, just added in 2 days ago, so I didn't. It's like it's just bloat, so it is. They're all, and my food hasn't gone up all that much either. Like I said, I was on 35 grams raw weight rice and bumped it to 50, and that's not enough to make me bloat. I can put down food, but just adding in that little 12 IU Atlantis, that's all it took for me to start getting bloating. So
what is your if you have one, what does your waist control routine look like?
I don't have one.
You don't have one? You're just gifted? Yeah.
Never had one. No, I've always naturally have been able to do, like, pull a really good vacuum, and I
so you don't like practice vacuums in the morning at all or anything?
Okay. Never had.
So for me, I do have to do that. I don't necessarily have a wide waist per se, but if I don't control it, it'll get out of hand. And with my hips being a bit wider, it's something I just have to keep strong. I've always done vacuums in the morning, but something I've started doing recently is I've started doing planks in the morning as well. And these aren't just planks where you're sitting there letting your stomach hang out, lazily doing them. Like you're pulling your stomach up into your kidneys, basically. When you're doing it, it's almost like you're doing a vacuum in a sense while you're doing the planks. So I'll do 10 sets for basically as long as I can hold them for vacuums. Ends up being somewhere between 10 to 20 seconds. If I wake up and I'm pretty hungry, I can hold it for about 20 seconds in a vacuum. So I'll do 10 of those, and then I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 sets. I try to do 5 every single morning, 5 sets of planks for about a minute. And I'm curious to see, once we add back Atlantis, how that affects my waist control. I'm wondering if maybe that is just the deciding factor, and maybe I don't have that bloating problem anymore because of the planks.
Yeah, I know. If you watch John Jewett, I know you watch John Jewett, but you see his waist control, like his stomach's out here like he's pregnant, but with how he practices planks and everything, not planks, but vacuums.
He completely transformed his waist.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah.
I think him and Rolly Winkler have 2 of the best waist transformations ever.
Yep.
What's up, Dad?
Can y'all hear me fine?
Yeah. How you been doing?
Yeah, sorry I'm so late, man.
No, that's all right.
I'm doing all right.
You had a good reason for it. Well, two good reasons for it. One, the gym, and then two, your lady. So perfect reasons.
Yeah. I always underestimate how much time it's going to take me too, because like my workouts now, you'd think that with the amount of volume, it's not going to be that long of a training session, but it's just you have to have enough recovery time between sets. So
did your volume get like lowered when you made the change?
Yeah, I'd say because most of my stuff it's maybe 2 or 3 sets at most. Which granted, I would do 3 sets, but now it's like 2 sets. But then the second set's like a dual drop set or rest pause set. So it's a lot more turning and burning.
My volume got obliterated. Some days I was doing 30 plus sets, and now I'm doing like somewhere between 15 to 20, depending on the day. And my workouts take just as long, if not longer, than before. Yeah, but we were just
did you already start the recording then?
Yeah. We're just kind of going over, what's been going on for the past week and a half. Sure. We were just going over basically the differences we had in, going from the cruise into now, where our weight's at, stuff like that. So.
Oh, sure. Cool.
So I think, I covered me. You didn't talk about your stuff.
Yeah, so I'm in the past week and a half, not much has changed. Once you're kind of 3-4 weeks into a cruise, everything's kind of normalizing and chilling. So nothing too eventful. Training's been going good. Sleep has been going good. I'm starving every meal. Like I could eat every 60 minutes if I needed to. Sometimes I do. But so like I was saying, stomach is way tighter. I don't know how much of that is just the Atlantis coming out and how much of that is me adding those planks in along with the vacuums. Because like I said, I'm doing 10 sets of vacuums for anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds, and then pretty much 5 sets of a minute plank. I'm doing that first thing when I wake up and right before I go to bed. So I'm spending like an hour of my day on waist control. So,
I need to be doing that too. That was something I kind of told myself I should probably try to prioritize this off season. Not that I really have a blown out waist, but obviously wanting to maintain that control while trying to put on size. But
and I tell you, like, make it better too, because like there's no such thing as too small of a waist.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's more illusion for me anyway. My waist is not actually, relatively small, but I don't know, because with my work schedule and everything right now, I always find it so difficult as it is just to. I do my fasted cardio, then I've got to make sure that I'm hydrated to an optimum amount. Then I've got to get my pre-workout meal in and then hit the gym and still have enough time to get a full training session in. So it's like with all that, all that timing, I'm getting 6 hours of sleep and I have to go.
Yeah. So like my
even making a little more time.
My lifestyle is 110 set up for bodybuilding. Like working at a gym, I make my own schedule. My off days from work are the days I don't train. Like I have that much control over my schedule. I go to bed at like 9:30 most nights, and I'm up at anywhere from 6:30 to 7:30, depending on how long I can sleep for. I wake up, I do that routine, I do my fasted cardio, I eat my meal, I go train. So like, and I can walk after every meal because I got a treadmill at the gym. My situation is absolutely not going to be reasonable for most people to emulate. And I understand that. So I honestly think in the off season, if something like that is going to take away from your quality of life, or even really like have this thought to where it's like, oh, I gotta fucking do this, I gotta spend this doing this. If it's something that is not absolutely essential for you, I'd say just hold it off until prep, when you have that mental motivation to make it worth it. And with you already having a really good waist. If it's gonna,
and abdominal training is really easy for me once I get into prep. And I actually wanted to ask you, because my biggest problem is that you said that you're able to eat every hour. I'm the same way. The only thing different that's going into this off season, or rather this post show rebound that I'm still in, is I'm still microdosing retatrutide. I'm using 0.7 milligrams a week, just 0.1 milligrams per day. But I find I don't know if it's that or if I'm just genuinely eating that much more food volume. Because I still wake up and I'm still slightly full feeling, although I can still get the meal down. It's not like I'm over here like, oh, I can't eat. But when I wake up, that waist control to say, like when I was in prep, oh, it's easy to pull a vacuum because it feels like there's no food in my gut. Whereas now, there's still some in there, and then you still have like, your bowel movement. So it's like, I guess the abdominal control is, so not to say you can't do it, but it's more difficult.
Are you doing any type of fiber supplementation?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Austin's just got me throwing in, and this is probably like the most minute amount. He's got me throwing in some of that sugar-free. I use the Great Value version, Metamucil. Yeah, I think it's 5 grams of powder, so it's like such an insignificant amount of fiber. Yeah. But he's got this special cocktail concoction that I drink before my first meal of the day, which is super
let me
greens,
guess.
which this is.
Yeah, probably lemon extract, apple cider vinegar, maybe aloe vera extract, and then.
So initially, he had me doing the Metamucil. We just recently incorporated apple cider vinegar because I noticed I've been having a little bit of, I guess you'd call it acid reflux kind of GERD. You know, after some meals, I'm having a little bit of burning in my throat. And he seemed to point out that it could potentially be olive oil, which I've never actually considered. But we went ahead and made the swap from olive oil to avocado oil, which he actually had recommended. I believe
I personally like avocado oil better.
Yeah. But he recommended macadamia nut oil, but the Walmart I shop at, they don't even have that. They had barely any selection of avocado oil, but knock on wood, so far it's been a lot better. Like there's a lot less inflammation because even with me like prioritizing digestion steps, I'm still finding that there's just that like almost burping or whatever. I drink a lot of fluids. I almost drink fluids trying to help with the burning, but no, he's incorporated apple cider vinegar into this cocktail, if you will. It's the first time I've ever done anything like it. I never prioritized micros. I took my daily multivitamin twice a day, morning and night, but he's got me using these super greens powder, the Metamucil, apple cider vinegar, and then it's creatine and glutamine, 10 grams of each thrown into a drink. And that's before my first meal of the day. So I can't say if it's like, super beneficial or whatever, but it's one of those things. It's just another thing you check off your list. It might have some added benefit.
What's your protein at? Because I know whenever you were coaching yourself, your protein was relatively like 1 gram per pound of body weight, pretty low. Has he upped it a lot or not a lot?
So my mistake whenever we went into coaching together or allowing him to coach me was I had taken on Paul Barnett's carb cycling philosophy, which I should say Justin Harris's, because that's kind of where it came from. But it was that tracking only direct macros type of setup where you only track your protein coming from direct protein sources like chicken or ground beef or whatever. So whenever he asked me, like, what are your macros? My macros at maintenance was 3,800 calories at 275 protein. So it's about 1.3 grams per pound of body weight is like the top end that I'll do. I think I pushed up to 1.5 in prep just for satiety's sake. And I found that it was just causing too much digestive issue. So I dialed it back to 1.3. And then on high carb days, whenever we're trying to leverage a lot of carbs, it was just down to 1 gram. And then even near the tail end of prep, I was going down to 0.8. So I could try to really maximize glycogen storage. But that was all direct protein source. So where I told him, I'm eating 275 protein and 30 grams of fat, and that's direct fat source fat, like avocado oil, olive oil, whatever. And then I guess you could technically add in fish oil, but I really don't track fish oil as a fat. You're getting your essential fatty acids from fish oil. But
as long as you're not doing like 10 of those things a day.
Yeah, I take 3 to 4 grams a day. But other than that, the carb source, obviously rice, anything kind of, starch based, you would track. But anyway, with all that being said, if I were to go input what I was eating day to day in my Fitness Pal, in my head, I was eating 3,800 calories. But on my Fitness Pal, it'll say, oh, you're eating 4,450 calories because all of a sudden that 275 protein is actually more like 330. And so I wasn't tracking those indirect macros coming from protein. Well, when I told Austin this, I wasn't thinking at the time. And I think we had mentioned this in the last podcast, actually, me and Anson. I don't know if you were still in the podcast at the time, but I made sure to mention to Austin, I made the mistake that I brain just, whenever I was writing all this information out, I didn't think it through that he's probably going to track indirect macros too. So he's technically, I think, got me on lower protein right now. Or maybe at the same amount, because if I put his diet that he's got me on into my Fitness Pal, it roughly comes out to around that 300 to 330 gram mark too. So it's probably still around that same amount of direct macro source, but he's also got me eating more protein variety now where, Stevie, I can get by with just 6 meals of chicken a day. I don't care. But he's got me doing Greek yogurt mixed with whey protein, and he's got me doing a little bit of ground beef, which I had intended on incorporating this off season.
I love
and then chicken too. But you're telling me like my girl, she does not like chicken. Well, let me put it this way, because she'll chime in immediately. She likes chicken breast. She doesn't like the way that I cook it because it's oven baked. She likes the kind of like grilled chicken, that you'd get at a restaurant.
Dude, I'm lazy right now. I'm doing mine in the air fryer, and my wife loves it when I do it on the Blackstone and hibachi it a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't season my stuff really strongly either. So.
Oh, I do. That's the problem. My wife does. She'll tell me to back down on the seasoning because I am heavy on the seasoning, even if it's just salt.
I did no seasoning last off season. I did none. except for salt.
For prepping my food, I told Daniel I have crock pot for my chicken breast. Like cut off the chicken and then just do it all in the crock pot, and I just do salt and pepper. But I like it to taste bland. The more bland it tastes, the better it feels to me.
Well, so
but then for my
with it being bland like that, are you doing sauces on top of that or no?
I do so like Melinda's sauce every now and then like there's this Japanese barbecue sauce I really like with like a little bit of 30 calories. But then for my beef, I just started adding back in beef after coming out on my cruise. I didn't have any beef in my cruise, but I'm adding it back in as I'm gaining weight again. And I cook it in a pot, kind of like get all the fat out of it as I can. Then I put it in my strainer, and I get like paper towels and I press it down and rinse it all out. Then I run water over it. Then I press it down and rinse it all out again.
What are you buying?
What percent ground beef is this? Whenever you're
ground beef, I try to make it as dry and as
what percent fat is it? Like 93.7?
93.7, yeah.
You're doing that with 93.7, man.
That's funny you say that because I feel like
it all out of there.
No,
may have been just
wrong. I strain it, but not like that. Like I cook it, I put it in a strainer, wash it out, I cook it again.
Yeah, I feel like I heard Justin Compton say that because I currently I don't strain out my 93.7 ground beef, but I feel like I had heard him saying something along the lines of like, you're already buying lean beef. Why are you straining out any more of the fats? Because it's not to say that you need a shitload of fats in your diet, but those are. I'm not gonna say that I hate the subjective term of healthy versus non-healthy. I think moderation of everything is important. But to say that you shouldn't be getting those fats from ground beef, I just feel like that's kind of like.
Well, here's the thing: if you're buying grass-fed primo beef, I agree. But if you're like me and you're buying the Walmart brand, you should probably strain that shit.
Yeah, that's something I have considered too because I'm actually. I would buy Walmart, but actually I shop at Sam's Club as well.
Yeah.
And they have these nice 1 pound sealed 93.7s.
Man, I can't even.
But what I'll tell you that I've come to learn, that's the thing is initially me and my girl, I would whenever I get her ground beef, it's actually 90-10 because they sell like the 10-pound tube of 90-10.
Yeah.
I don't want 90-10, and if I'm going to get 90-10, I'm going to strain it as well.
Mm-hmm.
These 93.7 though, they come in these little 1 pound sealed packs. So if I want 2 pounds at a time, I just grab 2 of them out of the freezer and throw them on the stove.
You realize how insane that would sound to a regular person? How neurotic we're being over 3%.
Yep.
Think about that. That's just crazy.
Well, but that's the thing too is we obviously all know that 93 is an estimate.
Yes.
You're looking at and quite honestly, my concern with this, the non-grass fed, non-organic ground beef is that I know for a fact they're putting dyes in a lot of this shit. And the redder the meat, the leaner it is. And if you're putting red dyes in it, how are you to tell me that it's not potentially fattier than 100%. It actually is, right? So that's where, like, kind of like what you mentioned, my cheap ass doesn't want to strain out the ground beef because then I'm like, oh, I'm just losing volume of food here.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it's a little bit fattier, so be it. I mean, as long as you keep it consistent, right? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, consistency is a big thing. Then another option is you don't even have to do ground beef. You get like a really lean,
London
like broil. Yeah, broil. And the price for like per pound for what I found at least for like the ground beef 93.7, like a nice broil, it's only maybe like difference of 30 cents. So if you want to chop,
that's true.
It's not bad.
I think London broil might be cheaper.
It might be.
I think it's like
depends on where you buy it.
I can get it for like $5.50 a pound around here. London broil. I don't think my ground beef is that cheap. My wife does most of the shopping, so I'm not sure. But
yeah,
definitely depends on where you're getting it because I know ground beef certainly has gone up in price. That's something I'm maybe because I'm still I'll qualify myself as poor. You can never have enough money, but the way I see it, it's like I'm such a unit price guy. I look at the unit price of everything, and I can look at trends of like receipts from a year ago to now on how much stuff has gone up. And so I remember getting my girl that 10 pound ground beef for maybe $4.30 a pound, and now it's probably up to like $5.30. And then I've seen the 93.7 you can buy in the highest unit price value, like the bulk amount at Walmart, and it's still like $6.50+ per pound now, even for like the 3 to 4 pound packs. So these 93.7 that I'm buying at Sam's Club, where I'll question the validity on are they truly 93 or whatever, they're still like only $4.50 a pound. So I feel like, you know what, I'm getting the cheaper deal here, so that's where I'm going to buy it.
One thing I've noticed, I used to do 96.4. Have you guys noticed that shit's just not in stores anymore? Or is it just my area?
I feel like I've never seen 96.4. I've seen 94.6, but I've never seen 96.4.
I have 96.4, so
96.4. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. 96.4. It used to be. I used to see that everywhere. I can't find it now. So
I find it.
Was there a color code at Walmart? Because I know Walmart's got green. It's okay because 93.7 is green at my Walmart, and they've got a 94.6 that's purple. I think.
It may be,
I don't think it's 96.4.
It may be 96.4, 96, something like that.
Yeah. I think 96. I think 96.4 is the purple, but I saw 96.4 just like a few days ago at the Aldi's I go to.
Yeah.
So I still see it, so I do, but I don't get it just because the price. I mean, it's a difference of like 1% fat. That is a mental thing again. It's like 93.7 versus 96.4.
The way I see it is like Dan said, it's an estimate, right? So the closer we can get to it being as lean as possible, the less error for the butcher in my mind.
Yeah, that's true.
If I could find 96.4, I'd probably switch to that personally, just for sake of neuroticism. But so on this topic, I think this is interesting. Bulking on a budget and finding deals for food. What do you guys do to kind of help with that? Like, what do you look out for? Are there any apps you have? Any particular stores you go for this or that? So for me, for example, my wife is great about finding deals. Like, it's kind of disturbing how easily she can find a deal. It's like anytime she goes on her phone, there's a deal. So with Harris Teeter, I would normally never go there to buy anything because it is super expensive. However, for whatever reason, they have pretty high quality chicken breast, and I'm getting them for $1.99 a pound because of the deals.
Ooh, that's good.
It's actually really good. Yeah, it's like $2.64 where I get it.
Yeah, that's the base price. But with the VIT card membership, we will get it for $1.99 a pound. So what I'll do is I'll buy 6, 7, 8 packs of that. Mind you, each pack is only like $5 or $6 with this discount. Throw them in the deep freezer, and we're good for a while.
Yeah,
that's helped me a ton.
Stevie,
it was a little bit of an
investment.
You got to invest in a deep freezer, but I really do think buying in bulk while bulking will.
That's why I have a deep freezer now. Yeah.
So my main two stores right now are Aldi's and BJ's. Aldi's, they usually do a deal. They like go back and forth between the meats every month, I see. So like this month they're doing like a deal on the 93.7 where they have it's like knocked down by like $1. It's like $5 something per pound. So I'll stock up on that. But then every now and then they'll do the chicken breast as well for like $2.29. The average price is $2.49, and that's the cheapest I can find around here. So I stock up on that at Aldi's. But then everything else I just get in bulk at BJ's, and I keep it relatively simple. I get my frozen vegetables in bulk because that's cheapest. I get my berries and stuff like that in bulk. So I just get everything in bulk that I can. As for deals or anything like that, if I could find like a what are they called? They're the places that like sell out to restaurants and whatnot.
U.S. Chef store, like supply store, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna branch off that here in a minute.
Yeah, we have one of those around here, and it's hit or miss.
Is it okay?
So it depends. When I went, and I've only been to the one, it was I drove about 45 minutes to go to it just to check it out. You're gonna have to drop some money on meats, particularly. We're talking 100 plus to even get into the entry point of buying the food. But once you do that, yeah, the discount is, I would say it's worth it. And I think everything else, like your vegetables, your fruit, stuff like that, it's a pretty good deal. But is it that much better than something like a VIT card deal or even Walmart or Sam's Club? For me, I've not noticed that personally. But maybe if you have like an actual membership to the U.S. Chef store or whatever it's called, maybe then in that case it would be worth it.
And I mean, the only other thing to really look out for on bulking on a budget, I guess, we've been talking about it because just don't go get like protein bars and protein cookies.
Yes.
Stick to the chicken breast, stick to rice, and stick to the cheap stuff, the whole foods, single ingredient stuff. That's generally the cheaper stuff. If people say eating healthy is expensive.
Yeah, one thing about that that I've come onto recently is I typically would not have nut butter in my diet just because I'm a psychopath when it comes to nut butter. In the past, I'd down whole jars. But now I'm finally mature enough to where I don't do that anymore. I can eat my 30 grams on my diet and stick to it. I kind of delved into it, and a lot of these nut butters that have natural on it and stuff like that, they're loaded with like molasses.
I was about to ask you.
A whole bunch of
To
artificial
clarify, is this going to be the like natural peanut butter, or is this going to be, because that's the thing that I've learned is that the like when I buy natural peanut butter, I buy the Smucker's because it's just purely peanut butter and salt. Where you can buy like the Jiffy that says natural, but then it's got or Jif like, that has the other shit in it.
Yeah, like Steve was saying, single ingredient, just nuts, salt. So I get the Teddy brand from Walmart. It's this big green jar, about that big, super cheap. Literally just, I don't even know if it has salt in it. Actually, I think it might just be peanuts.
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah,
you don't really want to sit there and eat that by the spoonful, though. Personally, hey man, I like to mix it into stuff.
Like I said, like I said, I'm an absolute psychopath when it comes to nut butter. I could eat that whole jar in one sitting with no salt. I'm good.
What I do with that, so I get the same thing, but what I do is I take like some stevia packets and put it in.
I can't. I really will eat the whole jar if I do that. I can't do that.
I do like to taste sweet, so I do just mix it in, but I'm able to control myself a little bit. So
I do that after the fact. So, like for example, for my Ninja Creamy, my last meal I'm gonna have in an hour or two here. It's just the Ninja Creamy, which is nothing but whey protein and water, 30 grams of nut butter, and then 1.5 grams of salt. I'll sprinkle the 1.5 grams of salt on the peanut butter after I put it on the creamy, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit of stevia on top of it. Boom.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between stevia and Truvia? Because I know
I don't think so.
I bought Truvia a long time ago. It's just been sitting in my cabinet. So that's what I've been using. I actually never really dabbled with artificial sweeteners, but now that, and this is another thing that I guess I was not very, I'll say specific with, was using a teaspoon to measure out how much salt each meal is getting. So now
I weigh it on a scale.
A half teaspoon of salt. Well, and that's the thing is if you get a high enough accuracy scale, that'll work. But I find that my scale, it goes by that 2 to 4, or it goes by 2 grams usually.
I got a scale where I got
one of them high end ones. But yeah, so I ended up using a teaspoon now. That's the only thing I've ever used like measuring cups for, or measuring spoons, is just the salt as of recent. It's been working. He's got me doing 3/4 around training and in my intro shake, and then anything else is a half teaspoon. But to branch off that though, because y'all, before I kind of get off that topic, y'all were talking about finding good deals. So me personally, I mentioned Sam's Club. We got a Walmart. We got Kroger. We got Publix. Publix is the rich people's store. I don't go to Publix.
You have a Costco?
The only time, unfortunately, well, the closest one will be an hour out in Nashville. I'm not going to Nashville for Costco. But there's supposedly, maybe, possibly going to be a Costco being built here in Clarksville eventually. This city is ever expanding right now, but it hasn't really caught up with the infrastructure yet. But we have a Sam's Club, and so mentioning restaurant supplies, we have a Gordon Food Service, and that's like a restaurant supply store. And initially I thought, oh yeah, you buy in bulk and you'd be able to save some money, which I remember looking online. I had tested this out maybe a year or two ago. I bought chicken breast from them. They had 40-pound cases of chicken breast, and it was like $1.30 a pound. And so I was like, oh man, that's just insane. Open them up though and see how much fat is left on them, and you realize how much you're paying for the weight of fat that you're going to cut off anyway. So I ended up realizing it wasn't worth it, because I've taken an average, and I know this is going to sound fucking crazy, but the average amount of fat that I cut off my chicken breast in terms of weight, say you get 6 pounds of chicken in a pack from Sam's Club, it generally always loses about 25% of its weight when I cut the fat off, and then take another 25% out whenever you cook it. And then you know what the cooked weight's going to be by the end of that 6 pounds, because it's essentially losing 25% and then 25% again.
Another thing about that too is I have noticed the lower quality of the chicken breast, the higher the fat content. Yeah. Personally, like the few times I'm not super bougie, okay, but again, we get those deals on the Harris Teeter chicken breast. I find they're generally pretty high quality. I usually don't even have to trim fat off of. So if there's 5 chicken breasts in a family pack, there's maybe 1 chicken breast where there's any fat that's worth me trimming it off, and I'll be pretty proud about that.
That's definitely where I've almost thought to like go the route of buying Purdue at Walmart, because that's like the higher tier brand than buying like Walmart chicken. But I've noticed when I do buy their chicken breast, not only are the pieces of tissue, they're smaller, because you can tell whether they're hormonally grown or not, they're not as large as the ones that you're getting when you're buying those huge packs of chicken. And I find that the tissue, they call it woody chicken, I believe, but I've had pieces of chicken where you cook it and it almost feels like you're chewing on rubber, but it's always the really, really large chicken breasts, where if I buy those little small chicken breasts, not only is there less fat on them, but I never have that issue, and the tissue just seems to be a lot cleaner, but then you're paying $3.50–4 a pound. So it really comes down to what your preference is.
My
With
favorite
all that being
is
said,
the tenderloins. When you can get a deal on those, that's the way to go.
I was buying tenderloins at Sam's Club because it was about $3 a pound, but then you're cutting no fat off. So technically, I did the math between chicken breasts and tenderloins. You're paying about the exact same amount, but less prep work because you don't have to cut the fat off of tenderloins. The only thing I don't like about tenderloins, and I did it all last off season, was chewing on the freaking tendons that are on the ends of them. So that would kind of get annoying for me. And I don't know, they cook a little bit quicker, but they can also dry out that much quicker too. So, but between all the grocery stores I've been to, I found out Gordon Food Service was not it. Like you kind of like what you said. Yes, you can buy meat there, but you have to buy a shitload of it. And I found that, like, for example, the chicken breast that I was able to get discounted there, it was just more time I had to spend cutting fat off, and I actually wasn't saving any money. Everything else there, actually, unit price wise, was more than I could buy at Walmart or Sam's Club. But I found my things at Walmart that are cheaper than what I can buy at Sam's Club, and then vice versa. There's stuff at Sam's Club. And to top all that off, and this is just like me really going into saving hacks here, I have a Sam's Club Plus membership, which is about $100 a year. But if you're a Plus member, you get 2% cash back in Sam's Cash, they call it. It's essentially currency you get back towards the store. And then if you apply for their MasterCard, you get another 3% cash back. So every single time I make purchases there, which I've done the math, me and my girl, between the two of us, averaged about $4,000 last year in purchases at Sam's Club. You take 5% of that and you get it back in your pocket, and you're getting a free membership, and then you're getting money back for the bulk that you're already purchasing. So I find that that's like the most significant way I can save money right now is going to Sam's Club. Even like the fruits. I mean, I thought I was saving money by buying frozen fruit in bulk at Walmart, but I'm buying it for way cheaper.
Man, Walmart used to be almost as good as Sam's when it comes to the price. They're not anymore. Straight up.
I think
they're not even like associated. You know, you think they are because whatever, but no. There's an entirely different MasterCard for Walmart than Sam's Club, which I think is stupid. I feel like my Sam's Club MasterCard should also give me some kind of benefit at Walmart, but you have to have an entirely different credit card there. So,
one more thing that I'll mention, just because I have to go. Like, I can't go not mentioning it. I know Daniel knows what I do for my cream of rice. I did get a so if you like cream of rice and you feel like you have cream of rice, I get a coffee grinder, so I do, and I just take regular rice and grind it up in the coffee grinder on the finest of it. It is the exact same thing as the orange box rice.
Dude, I put mine in a blender.
Tons of money, so you are. So
I put jasmine rice in a blender. That makes cream of rice.
Yep, the exact same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the only clarification on that is that you'd have to find out. It could be the most minute difference, but whether the cream of rice that you're buying in a box is jasmine rice or if it's basmati or whatever, there might be a slight glycemic index difference. But the point being, I'm the same way now. I blend up my cream of rice, and I've actually found, man, I've gone all this time not eating a cream of rice, but I can get 100 carbs of rice in so easily when I'm doing my cream of rice meal. I mean, I make the meal and it's 115 carbs and 50 grams of protein, and I inhale it in 2 minutes, and I'm like, what the heck? This wasn't even a meal. And I just think to myself, how many times last off season was I force feeding food because I was not using cream of rice?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to buy the box. It was too expensive.
That's almost a negative for me and Steve because we have such high appetites. It's like I try to find ways to make my cream of rice be denser and fluffier. Do that. Yeah, like I'll do baking powder. I'll add my Metamucil to it actually to make it fluffier. Yeah, I know, but like you season it with enough cinnamon, it hides the taste of anything.
Oh my god! Yeah, the orange flavor.
yeah. But I figured the vanilla protein powder helps mask that a bit, and you know, I'm honestly more of like a volume eater than I am a taste eater. Like if I'm at a restaurant, I want to have pretty high quality, but like honestly, I'm happy with as long as I got like 500 grams of weight of something, I'm pretty happy.
I'm the same way. Yeah. If I order a meal at a restaurant and it comes out and it tastes good, like, but if I eat it in 3 bites, I'm like, what was that?
I will legitimately get mad about that.
I'm not satisfied. Yeah. While we're on the topic, real quick, because I pop off real quick, I do want to get this question in for one client that asked it, and it's a pretty simple and straightforward question, so it's going to be too hard. Diet hacks from both of you guys for or diet tips for prep, and then also how you guys go about keeping your training intensity up during prep.
Okay. You want to start now?
I'll let you go first. Okay, I'll go. My big thing, just for performance sake, we're obviously going to try to leverage carbs around training.
Mm.
I actually had a different approach this last prep. Usually I would pull Gatorade, and that's just my chosen glucose source for during training. I didn't pull it this time, and the reason why is because I knew, that was less opportunity to have like voluminous food later throughout my diet, but I found that having that Gatorade during my training just made all the difference in, I hate to say just the pump, but like actually feeling
Everything.
the movements and just having the energy to continue training. So yeah, leveraging carbs around training pre, intra, and post. Fullness, man, I'm not going to be the guy to sit here and say, oh, I'm just perfect at prep, because I will say that Redo was definitely somewhat of a crutch for me this last prep. Like in previous prep, I struggled with hunger a lot, and I realized probably I needed more veggie volume. I probably incorporate more veggies. This is the first time I've actually incorporated green beans into my diet, and come to find out how cheap it is to buy frozen green beans. Man, I don't know why I didn't, because I always hear, oh, you need to have asparagus during prep, but then you look at asparagus and I'm like, God, that's actually kind of expensive for the amount of volume I need to actually feel full. But the green beans are helping a lot, so that's something I wish I quite frankly would have had in all my preps now, because honestly I used to hate vegetables growing up, and I think that every kid in this day and age, with the way we're exposed to all these artificial foods and shit, you don't develop much of a palate. But as I got older, I started to develop that palate. So that's one thing, is just having more food volume through vegetables. Essentially with the way Paul Barnett sets his diets up, he's like, I don't even track the calories from vegetables. And I can kind of attribute to that, because you're going to burn through those calories so quickly, as long as you're eating enough to keep your energy levels up, right? Your metabolic rate's going to go up. Yeah. And if you're training hard. But then other than that, just water consumption, drinking a shitload of water throughout the day. You don't want to waterlog yourself, but I was drinking upwards of 2 to 3 gallons at the end of prep.
I will waterlog myself. I've kept this habit into the off season just because honestly I like it. But I will drink a whole gallon while I train. Yeah. So is that all? Is that all you wanted to on that topic, Dan? Or
the only other thing that I would say is try not to have too palatable of a diet. And I was actually going to branch off this earlier, because Stevie mentioned not eating protein bars and stuff, or buying. I'm gonna sound very harsh here and very critical, but when I see guys that look like us, or smaller, I should say, people who are not like serious into the scene of bodybuilding yet, but I see the amount of money they're putting into what's that bowl of gains. I don't have anything against that. Like if you have the money to fork out, by all means. But I see guys, they are way too prioritizing in the money that they're spending on protein bars and protein this and protein that and flavorful. I'm like, dude. If you have the luxury to spend that much money, great. But if you're doing all that, but you still don't even have like a solid foundation of a physique, I'm gonna have to ask you to reprioritize what you're doing, because I think your money's going all into the wrong thing.
I think it's wonderful. I think they've got some great stuff going over at Flavor Gang and Elevate, all those other places. But man, I'm gonna be real. If you're not a sponsored athlete, it's probably irresponsible to like have the majority.
It's expensive. It is too expensive.
I think it's straight up irresponsible to have the majority of your cream of rice come from those companies. If you
and I hear guys cutting their cream of rice. Yeah, I hear guys like doing like half and half, which I can understand. But once again, I think it comes down to palatability's sake, because I think the things that are so overly sweetened or artificially flavored are only going to increase your desire to eat more food. I hate to say, but in prep, you're eating like a dog. You're not eating for flavor. 100%. You're eating to just to fuel your body. And if you're going and eating for flavor, it's only going to make you think about food that much more, which is why I actually tell people, don't even chew gum during prep, because I've tried chewing gum thinking that would stimulate my brain into thinking, oh yeah, I'm full. No, it actually makes you just want to eat more.
Exactly.
Going back to why I make my chicken breast and beef so bland. That's part of the reason, actually. It's because it keeps me from like we've been saying, wide-waisted, big belly boy over here. I can eat a lot, so I keep it bland. I have to keep my hunger down year-round. Doesn't matter how much I'm eating. So
I think the last input I have.
I'm hopeful that you'll once as you get bigger and mature, Steve. I'm very hopeful for you, but I think you're going to be able to eat more food, like, and stay super. That's what's happened for me. Like, I've been able to eat more and more, and like, it's a beautiful thing. You just need more time. Is all. You're not going to have to suffer forever, is what I'm saying. Because I know when I was your age, it fucking sucked to have to.
When you push
like 4,000.
When you push the androgens far enough, honestly, the way I see it, it's like you push up to a certain caloric intake, and whenever you've got such high androgen load, that eventually is going to become maintenance. And eventually you're going to start losing body fat at that new set point. on that new amount of calorie intake.
Like my
You might
maintenance is
gain weight at first,
5,000.
but
My maintenance is 5,100 calories right now.
yeah, and that's just due to your size and just activity level. Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally requires more. That's what I always find funny is like when people like sit there and talk to me. Like whenever I look like I'm starving during prep at work, they'll see my 4 meals and they'll be like, I don't know how you're starving. I'm like, because I'm literally burning more calories sitting here than you are while you're going and actually doing stuff. It requires more for me just to exist right now than you whenever you're actually doing labor intensive work.
Yeah.
So my only other thing to branch off of that, and because I don't want to go into a whole tangent, is just embrace the fact that prep's not going to be fun. Yeah. If you are not emotionally and physically and mentally prepared to go through the suck of starving and being hungry and going to bed hungry some nights, you're not built for the sport.
Yeah.
100%.
That goes into what my main diet hack / tip is going to be. I'm going to steal this straight from my coach, Joe Percher. My number one diet hack is go the fuck to sleep. Do not stay up starving. Yeah. Get your food in and go to bed. Idle hands are the devil's playground. Do not be one of these guys who at 2 o'clock.
Where I fail every time.
Yeah, don't be one of these guys who at 2 a.m. is snacking on everything in your house. Which, you know, if you have a significant other or kids, you're gonna have stuff in your house that is not necessarily bodybuilding friendly. Most people are not going to be able to have nothing but chicken and rice in their house. So you're gonna have temptation if your situation is realistic, right? So I would say get your food in. You know, eat at pretty good intervals. Eat every hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on your schedule, of course. And once your food is done for the day, go to bed. This isn't like in the off season where I don't know about you, but I can't eat a meal and then go straight to bed. I'm gonna probably have some stomach distress if I do that, just from the volume of food. But
off season for sure.
Yeah, in a prep, our gastric emptying is on fire. You can eat a meal and go straight to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna be my number one diet hack, so to say. But you're gonna say.
The only other thing is like, and this is something I learned too, is like I used to just do like my meals around training were a certain amount of macros and then the rest of the meals were basically all the same. Now I've learned, okay, well, I can go through the suffering of hunger through most of my day aside from sleep. So maybe pull back some carbs from some of those non-training meals that are, you know, far away from training and try to just save some of those up for your final meal of the night for more food volume. Yeah. Or maybe more protein, if anything. Because like you said, you're going to go to sleep on a full stomach and you're not going to have any gastric distress. And quite frankly, the convenience, if I did live alone and I didn't have anything in my pantry but chicken and rice, then in case the worst I would do is splurge on my diet with chicken and rice, but it's not realistic. And being in a relationship, I can admit the only times that I ever went off plan, at which, by the way, this last prep, because I attribute a lot of it to Reddit because it just took away the food focus. The only time I ever did break off of my diet, which was in a previous prep, was girlfriend type foods in the house because I would see the shit and I couldn't help it. But now it's just like, man, I got to tell you, it's a game changer.
I had one kind of binge experience on the rebound after my first cheat meal. After the initial post show cheat meal, I think this was maybe a couple weeks post show. I had gone without it for so long that like after I had that cheat meal as my 5th or 6th meal for the day, I was just starving the rest of the day, and I was so hungry I had to eat something. I binged, but I binged on a bag of strawberries. Because there was nothing in my house but strawberries. There was nothing cooked. Yeah. So all I had was I had some frozen strawberries, and I probably ate like 100 grams of them, or 200 grams at most, if I'm being real. So it's like, what is that, like 50 calories? Something like that. My weight was down the next day.
Hardly anything, yeah.
So if you are in a situation, this would be considered a prep tip or a diet hack, is if you do.
That would actually be really fair because you're not going to sit here and tell me to go and snack on spinach. Yeah. But if you tell me, okay, you feel like binging, go eat some freaking blueberries or strawberries. Yeah. Honestly, that's really smart because it's still carbs, but you're going to eat so much and it's not going to be hardly any calories.
Especially if they're frozen too, because if you eat so many of them, you're just going to get brain freeze.
You're going to get brain freeze.
Yeah. So that could be, a diet
teeth are going to start hurting.
If you are someone who has high days, or if, let's say you're a lifestyle person and you have a cheat meal prescribed once per week or something like that, have foods where you can do that and not necessarily have to pay for it as much. But I would say ultimately for those of us that are serious competitors, binging or cheating or eating off plan at all in a contest prep is just out of the conversation. Yeah. Like even a gram out of plan is no bueno. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my biggest success this last prep was just never breaking. I didn't break for 26 weeks. I
Yeah.
didn't even have one cheat meal off plan.
I can say
it was all leveraged high carb days.
I've only done 2 preps, but I can say on both of those preps, I did not cheat on the diet, a single gram off plan. Now, you would not look at my stage shots and assume that, but I think that was just probably because of my coaching. So that's one of the reasons I was telling Steve earlier, man, I'm on fire to compete again. I'm like having to hold myself back because I know I can beat what I brought last time.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be whenever you go into a prep. Like if you're going into a prep, your mindset should just be set on that. Like I'm not missing a single thing. But I guess my biggest tip, because you guys kind of threw in your tips today, which was food related, training related. One thing I would say for training is you can film your sets, and if you have a coach, send those sets to your coach. It gives you more motivation for keeping intensity higher because someone is watching it. But as for not to touch on like diet or anything, but more so like the mental side is, I'd say compare yourself or be grateful for what you're able to do. Yeah. I guess you could say, because something that Chris Aceto, I know he went through some sort of health complication at one point.
Yeah, he had cancer.
Something that his clients would always say is, if they'd say something like they're hungry or they don't want to get up, do something. Chris Aceto would always remind them, be like, hey, I can't even get out of bed to go pee right now. I'd love to be able to do what you're doing. So realizing that you're able to do what you're doing, and you're honestly blessed to be able to do what you're doing, should give you some motivation and give you some like an oomph of like, all right, let's keep going because this is what I want to do. I'm choosing to do this.
It's a privilege.
We're starving on 6 to 7 meals a day.
Yeah,
you're embracing the privilege that you're even allowed to go through that.
Yeah, and you're able to get up and go to the gym, and you have the money to buy food and stuff like that. So that'd be my biggest tip, is start looking at it in a different light. And then also, you don't have to look at it in such a light like that, but you can also look at it as in, okay, I'm feeling hungry. Change your mindset from I'm feeling hungry to, I think one of you guys touched on it, but it was not I'm feeling hungry, but I'm getting more shredded. I'm getting leaner. My abs, my control is getting better. It's not I'm hungry. It's I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I'm going to be more shredded. I'm going to be more shredded a week from now. That's the mindset thing right there. So that's what I think is a big thing that a lot of people, whenever they first start a cut, and the client that asked this was an initial problem that he originally had or used to have whenever we put him in a mini cut. He'd immediately start thinking, I got to pull back my training. I'm going to get weaker. I'm like this. I'm like, you're a week into your cut. You're still like 20% body fat. You're not going to lose strength. If anything, you should be getting stronger right now. You're going to be getting stronger in your squat and stuff like that.
Glycogen stores aren't going to be low yet.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, don't even start this. So his mentality around that has changed, and he's really pushing through good. So but those would be my tips, I guess you could say. But
honestly, the only point I ever even started to feel weak during prep was whenever I started to crush my estrogen. I was actually relative to once I actually kind of depleted my stores initially of glycogen, I basically maintained the same strength all the way through.
I'm sorry, Daniel, but are those rats behind you?
No, I was going to say something earlier, man. I was like, oh my God, what are those behind you? They're adorable.
What is that?
So lower maintenance pet, but my girlfriend used to have guinea pigs, and guinea pigs are really smart animals too, but it just so happens that rats are actually even smarter. But it's a lower maintenance pet that we don't have like roaming around the house. So I kind of said, like, you know what, like this is an okay compromise if you want to have pet rats. I guess.
You want to give them Retta? No, I'm joking.
I tell her all the time. They're all females, and I tell her all the time. I'm like, oh, one of these days I'm gonna start experimenting, and she won't know which one's gonna start.
I'll make one of these things win Olympia.
Yeah, she doesn't know, but yeah, she's got a couple pet rats in there. So yeah, they're cute little buggers. I don't really bother with them much, but she's the rat lady. So
I thought it was bunnies. I thought it was
they
bunnies
asked, are those rats behind you? They finally asked.
Sure.
She'll go get one out for you real quick.
Okay.
Her favorite one passed away recently. They only have like a 2-year lifespan. So she taught them how to do tricks and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, dude, that's why I could never do guinea pigs or gerbils or anything as a kid, just because like I get too attached.
Yeah.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yep. There's one right there. She can buy them for like $9 at the pet store because they're feeder rats for snakes. So whenever she goes to buy one, the pet the person at the pet store will be like, "Oh yeah, that you want a really large one to feed your snake," and she's like, "No, I want to hold them to see which one I like for a pet."
That's great.
So, how many do you have right now?
6.
6 of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're very
that's
social
awesome.
animals. They get depressed if they're on their own. So,
All right.
yep. Sometimes I come home and there's just a new one in there. So,
Hey, better a rat
Gotta
than a
go,
cat,
Stevie.
right?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
drop off, you guys. Nice talk to you.
Yeah, good talking to you, man.
good seeing you, Stevie.
Yep.
And we'll get together and we'll do the whole Olympia thing as we get closer because we're what 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, something like that, man. I was telling my girl earlier because I
So
know
excited.
mentioned the keeping up with the Olympia. It's actually very interesting because I used to be die hard. Like I followed all the way up to Olympia week, and quite honestly, ever since I've gotten into this rhythm that I've been going through with working on myself as a bodybuilder, I have not kept up at all. Like I'll see pictures from time to time with some of the top Olympian contenders. I know Nick Walker looks like a freaking freak right now, and everybody's got problems with I guess Derek,
Yeah, everybody has him at
sight
like 6.
enhancement, and they think he's going to look like trash. And I can appreciate Derek's physique, but I personally don't look at that and say that's Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a weird time that we're in right now because when I look at modern day bodybuilding versus like the early 2000s and 90s, I don't know if it's the camera quality or if it's the way the Mr. Olympias are run now with the background, but man, I feel like those bodybuilders just looked different then. I don't know if it's the graininess of the film,
I think it's a few
but
things.
I have not seen a Mr. Olympia contender in modern day that I'm just like, man, that really gives off 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. So I think first off, the lighting was absolutely different back then.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe there was actually just like one production company that like did all these big shows, and it was somewhat uniform lighting and stage backdrops, things.
Well,
like
sure,
that.
didn't ESPN even sponsor the events and everything?
That might have been before. That might have been like the 80s or something. But
Okay.
yeah, at some point they did 100%.
Maybe the 80s and 90s.
Or maybe it was 2000s because Triple H was in the Olympia like hosting or something at one point.
I feel like it had to be around the time. It might have been 80s because I feel like it had to be around the time that they tried to make the Mr. Olympia go natural that one year, like drug tested, because
that was. I'm sure there's probably been multiple times where that happened, but that was actually 90s or early 2000s because Jay Cutler
was it 90s?
Yeah, because Jay Cutler talked about that. He talked about how. Do you watch the Overcome podcast with Austrian Powers?
Overcome podcast. I feel like I may have seen it before. I'm not.
He does like long form interviews with like a lot of the guys from the 90s and 2000s, like we're about to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
And, Basically, Jay Cutler's like, I really don't do well without diuretics. I found out the year because they started testing for diuretics, and that's another thing. One of the reasons that I think the early 2000s and the 90s guys looked so different is when those guys from the 80s and 90s talk to guys from nowadays era, they're like, yeah, so you guys go a lot harder on the gear, the growth, the insulin, but we went a lot harder on the diuretics. You guys will take 3 grams of gear and 10, 20 units of growth, but we were taking diuretics for 4 weeks up to the show.
That's actually a really good point because there is that dry, grainy look that they just had back then that you just don't really see on camera now. And I feel like I remember hearing Jay say something along those lines, and I don't know if it was in reference specifically to diuretics, but he said, I'm paraphrasing, he was like, we just weren't afraid of dying. Like, we just did not care. We were just like, this is what I am. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, man. And there's not.
And I think
much
you
they
have
can
to
do
have
that
some
in
level of
bodybuilding.
psychotic, mindset in order to go to that place of like saying, you know what, I have to be the best looking guy on stage. I don't care if I even have the potential.
And you got to think, man, back then there was a lot more money in the competition side of bodybuilding. You had all these different magazine contracts, and I think the Olympia, like the actual Weider organization, was still sponsoring people back then. You're talking 6 figures based on a placing.
And there's not so much incentive now because you realize that you can still be. I definitely won't call it a half-assed bodybuilder because they're still at the top of the level. But what I am saying is like you don't have to bring that level of competitiveness as you did because you can still make you can still get your bag of money. Just not taking it to the extreme.
Yeah, and then you do still have a few guys out there who are still bringing. I would say they're just as lean, if not leaner, as the 90 guys. We got Hadi Chupin, we got Nick Walker.
Yes.
A guy like, I would say a guy like Jordan Hutchinson is kind of in that same category in terms of conditioning.
Jordan's an exciting character I've been seeing. I follow him on social media, and I have been watching him come up, and it's an interesting one.
And Urs has a lot of that quality to him too now. We've not seen it as much in his open presentation just because it's so new. But I do think once he's had a chance to season that muscle, he will be just as grainy, if not grainier, than he was in Classic. But I think once that muscle has some time to mature, and he's going to add more muscle, he's not going to stay the same size. I think he's just going to look better and better. That guy's going to be fighting for the title in a year or two, or maybe not a year or two, but a couple of years.
I'm just glad he changed the hairstyle back.
Oh my god! I think
when I saw his hairstyle at the Olympia last year, I was just, or maybe it wasn't even the Olympia, but I was just like, dude, I like Urs a lot. There was just something about that. I hate to say that it takes away from the appearance, but whenever you have something that draws your eyes, that's actually why I specifically, this is to caveat onto my situation, I decided to shave my head. As a spectator, I've watched bodybuilding shows where a guy will be told, all right, front lat spread, and they'll turn their head straight down, and all you see is their bald spot on their crown.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that sticks out. So why would I leave something on my mind or on my body that? Yeah, exactly. Why would I leave something on my body that's going to take eyes away from the physique, right?
Yeah.
So like, just distracting.
Yeah. I think Urs even talked about it. I think he was having some legitimate like mental health things just from the
I did hear about
weight
that.
he was having to suck down, just the amount of suffering he was having to go through. So I'm also super happy for him in terms of that because he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, because he was like 280 in the off season. I was like, how is this guy even shrinking down into Classic? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean he's such a great guy. Like people like him make this sport special. I truly believe that, and I think he's going to be a great ambassador for the sport one day when he does get into that high placing role that he's destined for, I believe. So, yeah, with the other things that could potentially be really showing those differences between the early 2000s and modern day, I really do believe. I think guys nowadays are literally just bigger. I don't really think that's up for. I don't even know if that's up for belief or not. I think they're just bigger, and it's almost like the bigger a muscle gets, the less detailed it is for most people.
Well, that's the concern I always hear about talking about with when you start growth hormone. I know it's probably like bro science, but I always hear that kind of quote of like, once you start, you've got about a window of time before you're done. And I guess it's that combination of growth hormone abuse and insulin abuse. But when you hypertrophy that muscle to some point at which it's just so large, it almost looks like you've got site enhancement oil in there because it blurs the lines and the detail and the crisp, like actual quality of the muscle belly.
That's a topic. How much of that do you think is prevalent?
Site enhancement oil? I don't even want to try to theorize. I know I'll see those images online where people will say, oh, that looks like site enhancement injections right there. And all I can do is sit there and think, well, that, or maybe it's scar tissue, or maybe it's inflammation. Because I do know for a fact, I've done my own injections, and I can see whenever I have inflammation, and it sometimes looks like a rounded bump. But on the other hand, I don't know, man. The way I see it, I would never personally want to put myself in that position. If I thought I had a crack at the Mr. Olympia, the last thing I'd want to think is that I had to take Synthol or use Synthol to blow out my physique in certain areas just so I could beat somebody who might have actually had pure tissue.
Yeah.
Right. But it really comes down to the desperation of these competitors.
So at the level, because I've never been to the national level, but at the level you've competed at, did people talk about anything like that at all? Because I feel like guys are super, almost open to a fault nowadays.
Man, I don't even hear about it. The only times I ever hear about Synthol use is whenever I see poor cases of it. And I know a guy local to me. I know a guy local to me. I haphazardly would follow him through social media from time to time. But I saw him at the gym one day, and I pointed because I had never seen it in person. But I saw this dude doing freaking side laterals, and there were just these knots. Like you could see him just both sides of his shoulders; they were just sticking out. And when he would move them, it would almost like move up and down his shoulder, down to his arm here. And then I see this guy, he pops up on my social media a couple months later, and he's getting it removed. He had to go get emergency surgery. And he claims that it was something else, like a growth, but it was symmetrical on both sides. And I was like, I don't know. That looks like you used Synthol, and then it got infected, and now you're having to, deal with the repercussions of
Yeah, and it probably wasn't even actual synthol. It was probably just some cheap oil.
Probably something horrible, some freaking cooking
Yeah.
oil or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
like,
don't
I don't
know.
have nearly as much in-person experience at these levels as you do, but just based on what I've heard, and the previous coach I was with was 150% a synthol pusher. Um, I'm pretty sure you know who he used to work with, but I'm not going to say just for the sake of being PC. But every single one of his guys are on synthol, and they're on a lot of it.
I will say I've heard it online. I've never heard it in person. People talking about it, but I have heard of guys talking about, oh, you got to inject this amount, and then eventually your body will absorb it, and then you've got to keep injecting in order to keep that site enhancement.
So the idea behind it, what these people who are pushers of it like to say is that basically you put it underneath the fascia, and then it stretches out the fascia, and then the muscle grows within that space. I think that's probably bullshit.
Really?
And I can tell you there have been different times in my life where I have experimented with using it, but I just don't think it does anything, honestly. Because here's the thing: if you abuse it, you can tell. And those are the people that you're talking about who they get cysts, they get these things that have to be removed. It looks obvious. The guys that are doing it are probably doing it infrequently, most likely only in contest prep just to keep a muscle full, and probably like extremely small amounts. Some people will say like, "Oh, this guy is built on oil. This guy, his physique is built off of oil," stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't think so, because it would be pretty obvious if it was. I don't think it's as big a deal as people make it out to be. I'm sure there are some guys who use a ton of oil, and I'm sure there are some guys who have never touched the stuff. I think bodybuilding is so unique to an individual. I don't think there's necessarily a answer, but I would say most people probably do not abuse that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas
well,
most
you got to
people
remember at the end of the
definitely
day,
do abuse stuff like growth. Like you can say at a high level, probably everybody on that Olympia stage has taken upwards of 8 units of growth, and that's being conservative.
More, yeah. And the way I see it, it's like I'm not going to be one to criticize, kind of like what you mentioned. The only cases that we see of it is generally whenever it's been abused and it's very obvious.
Yep.
If there's a way to utilize it where it's not abusive and maybe it does create some pop, I guess I could understand like the rationale behind it. I personally wouldn't want to dabble with something like that, and that mindset probably shifts the further along you get too. It's like whenever you first start, oh, I'll never use insulin, or I'll never use X, Y, and Z, but then eventually you get into that level of the sport, that level of discomfort where you're like, but I've got to challenge myself and I've got to push myself even further so I can bring a much better, package to stage. Yeah. Maybe that's the case. And I even hear guys locally injecting growth hormone because there's some belief that it might produce more muscle if I inject my delts or my arms. I personally haven't tried it. I just recently for the first time tried rotating in site injections on my triceps. I literally use like 0.3 mLs of 300 milligram concentration testosterone, and my fucking triceps were swelling.
Yep.
Like bad. I didn't like it. Like I was able to train through it, but the swelling, I was like, oh, this is just not it. So
and I think that's a lot of what people get from the site enhancement oil, and they think that that's growth, but it's not.
Yeah, because they think it's fascia stretching, right?
Yeah,
and so
like I said,
belief that pump and stretch.
Yeah, there were times in my life where I, because of the guidance of a coach, experimented with it, and I would always stop because I would give it a try, and it was always super small amounts. Because if you do too much of it, even the people who push it are like, you're talking like a half a cc. You're not talking about a lot. But even the people that push it stand by that. But I would always just stop because it's like, man, this is doing nothing for me. It's expensive. It's a pain in the ass, literally. Not the glutes though, but it's just, I just don't think it's something that is that big of a deal.
It's all synthol to the glutes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still like this, but man, a couple of years ago, everybody was throwing out synthol accusations to like multiple different competitors, and I think half the time it was just bad gear. I don't even think it was synthol.
Well, and just think maybe women might do it too in the female sport, like wellness, because they have to have a certain level of softness, but at the same time be really lean. And so if you're going to sit here and tell me that there's not, because remember, they're trying to peak their athletes perfectly, these coaches, and they want a certain level of condition. And this woman specifically, she gets conditioned in certain areas that are going to deduct points from her on stage. Oh, we can inject the synthol though, and it will soften up that area while she maintains her conditioning elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So I don't know.
And
I personally,
honestly,
I would not be interested in doing it unless I felt like I had a very
No.
intelligent coach working with me,
it's
but
like
even
the thing
then,
is too. It's like guys aren't using this on their legs. They're not using this on their. I think the whole thing with Derek. I don't think Derek's putting.
delts and lats maybe.
I don't. I don't even think people do their lats, man, because the lats are a big muscle. I think we're talking like rear delts, triceps,
Arms.
and biceps. And it's like realistically, man, are those going to win you a show? Unless you have the legs, back, and chest to match, I don't think so.
No.
So I think to anyone out there who's thinking about doing it, I just say just don't. I just think that the risks are not worth the potential reward, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the way I see it, it's like even if you can get that 1% advantage of blowing up your biceps a little bit more, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're already having a resort to try to make your biceps pop a little bit more on stage, you're probably not destined to be Mr. Olympia, and you should just accept where you're.
Fix your training. Fix your training. Like, you should be able to grow everything on your body just with a barbell, dumbbell, and machine. Straight up. And if that's not working, then that doesn't mean that a new drug needs to be involved. That means that you need to look at your training, or better yet, have a coach look at your training, like me and you have both had. That's got to be the major key right there. So
my biceps training certainly has changed a lot, and biceps are one of my points that I just really need to bring up.
My arm and shoulder volume got cut by, like, I was doing upwards of probably doing 30, 40 sets for arms, and I was doing that much or more for rear and side delts. Now I think I'm doing like it's like 8 to 10 for side delts, and then it's like definitely under 20 for both biceps and triceps, and my arms have responded way better just because the intent is there. Like, I'm actually squeezing and contracting. Like, when I'm doing a tricep extension, I'm not just doing this right here, or I'm not just hunched over trying to do heavy. I'm exploding, holding, and then I'm slowly going back on the way up. And I'm squeezing. Yes, exactly. I like the focus on the eccentric for arm training, especially, and leg training, has been huge for me.
Yeah. Same here. 100%.
Yeah. So with anything in regards to the early 2000s to modern day bodybuilding, is there anything else that you can think of? I think the lighting was different. I think the stage was different. I think the cameras were definitely different. I think they were definitely, we know they were abusing diuretics back then. And I think overall the muscle wasn't quite as bloated or big per se. So I think there was better detail there. Is there anything else you can think of in the differences?
I mean, whenever, and I'm kind of branching off of what you said earlier, I can kind of agree in the sense that these guys are probably bigger now, and that kind of comes down to the cost. Like, we're trying to be mass monsters in the open division, but we're trying to still have mass with class, right? Like, you're not trying to be a classic physique competitor, but I think that it goes a long way that if you maintain that classic structure while trying to put, and that's like a double-edged sword, because you're saying I'm going to try to maintain a small, not blown out waist while building everything else, but I have to eat ridiculous amounts of food volume to get that size, which is going to blow out my stomach. It really is just a matter of like, how can you maintain that level of classic like aestheticism within your physique while putting on as much muscle as humanly possible. That made them look that much bigger, in my opinion. Yeah. Right. I that's just me personally. I know Ronnie is just a different freaking breed, but most of those guys, they were weighing 250 pounds maybe on stage. Mm-hmm. They looked humongous because of the way their structure was set up. Yeah. And I think the only people that I can even like refer by name right now, because like I said, I'm really horrible at keeping up with the division now. It's like Andrew Jacked. You know, even Samson, I'd have to say he's doing really well for holding his structure at 300 pounds. I mean, he's no Ronnie Coleman, and that's like putting it lightly, because like he's still humongous. He's still incredible looking, but I just think, well, I don't know. There's just nobody that comes close besides Phil Heath, and you know, obviously Phil was a lot shorter, so even with that, he wasn't weighing that much on stage. And it's not to say that all of them were that aesthetic, because like, look at Jay. I look at Jay, and I really liked his physique, but of course, at the time, people called him the fridge. Yeah, because he had such a blown out waist. Yeah, but that's what he had to do.
Not even blown out, just large. That's the thing, because he had good control of it, but it was just structurally big.
Just a structurally large waist. Yeah.
Yeah, and my favorite look of his personally is 01. 01 is so good. I think
98 or 99. I think it was 98 Ronnie. I really like 98 Ronnie.
And what's the two key things there? They both have great waistlines. So it just goes to show you, bigger is not always better, but it is bigger.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line, and I think going into getting bigger, both of us being in off seasons, me being in a cruise, you being in a rebound, I think maintaining digestive health is super important, especially the older we get. Which I don't think we don't really have to be super neurotic about it up until maybe 30s or so. I've kind of had on and off like IBS in periods throughout my life, so I kind of have to be pretty strict with my diet. I've got some food allergies, stuff like that. But what are some things you do to help keep your digestion on track in an off season?
And I was about to actually clarify on that, because I'd say that this is probably a turning point for me where I'm actually starting to think more into those kinds of things, because before it was like I said, I would just eat chicken and rice every single meal. Never thought about really incorporating veggies. Veggies was only an option for prep in order to maintain some level of fullness. But I'm actually starting to realize now because I might have a stomach of nails right now, but is it going to be like that in 5 to 10 years with how much food I'm going to have to start putting down? So yes, I think having a sufficient amount of fiber in your diet is important. I think the most important thing that I've become more hyper aware of now is just paying attention to stool consistency. And I know that whenever you're like looking into the world that we're in outside, that sounds so like taboo, but whenever you start to realize like
so important,
everything matters, paying attention to stuff like that will tell you a lot about your digestive health. Not only stool, but also, are you burping a lot? Are you farting a lot? Like, are you actually digesting this food? Making a point, and I've had to make this point myself, is going and getting my steps in after a meal. Go and get a 5 to 10 minute walk in, because it makes all the difference in how you digest that food and your blood, your blood sugar, how quick you get back down to baseline.
And we can be super neurotic with this to the point of wearing, which is something I'm going to do once I get back into pushing again, into wearing a CGM and, attributing a number to if our body is responsive to intake food or not. We can be that neurotic with it, or we can do something as simple as take a 10-minute walk after you eat a meal.
Do you have any reference to how you're going to get a CGM? I was actually curious, because not that I'm like bent on getting one. I was pretty sure you could. I feel like I had seen that, like, I forget, but it's like they're online now, where as long as you say you're not using one for insulin use or something, it's like some kind of guideline.
No, it's straight up marketed as a CGM for non-diabetics. It's called Lingo, I believe it's called.
No.
Now, it's a bit pricey. I think it's like $40 for like a week or something like that. Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe 2 weeks. But
because it is out of pocket.
The way I look at it is, man, I am neurotic as hell. I'm pricking my finger like twice, 3 times after each meal.
Test strips aren't cheap either.
They're not cheap. That's the thing. You're gonna buy a pack of 50 for like $20.
I'll actually tell you, I probably get the cheapest ones. Once again, talking about unit price, I have the Rely On Premier test strips. And Walmart sells them the cheapest, according to what I've gathered, and it's 100 test strips for $18. Okay. And so, but if you're going and testing your blood sugar, and then it didn't come back where I want it before I eat this next meal, I need to go walk a few more minutes. Then you go test it again. The next thing you know, you're going through. I don't do it every day right now. It's more like I think Austin he wants me to pull fasted in a postprandial glucose reading 2 to 3 times a week. Same with blood pressure. But in any case, you're using, 10 to 20 test strips a week. That adds up over time. So either way, that CGM is only going to give you a more accurate detail, especially if you start incorporating Lantus or Humalog. I think that can really help with
even Retta.
Retta. I haven't really seen.
People, it depends on the dose, because you said you're doing like 0.7. You're not doing full milligram.
So minuscule.
And I'm only doing a milligram, and even at a milligram, it's not crazy. But I think once you break the milligram mark, it starts to do quite a bit for blood glucose management. And then I think at the amounts we're doing, when you do combine that with Lantus, it's 1 + 1 = 6. They have a great compounding effect upon each other. And this is actually something that me and Steve were talking about off air before we started recording. My coach has been talking recently on his podcast about Lantus not being a 24-hour insulin in some people. Have you noticed
I heard
that?
him talking about that. I watched the exact same podcast. I heard his reasoning, because I heard Austin asking for some clarification. Why might he be splitting up the Basilog every 12 hours or whatever, which I actually thought it was a very fair point, because you're getting that bolus amount in the morning, and at some point it starts to kind of teeter off and it doesn't have as much effect, where if you go ahead and split that dose up twice in the day, it might just have a more I say extreme effect, but a more beneficial effect throughout all your blood glucose readings, rather than just your morning ones, right? So I actually liked that, and it might just be
depends on
something
the
that I
individual.
incorporate myself. Yeah,
It depends on the
and
individual,
that too.
So
But he
like
also has a
that's
CGM
where
to
the
even detect if that's a thing. Because
yeah.
once again, if you don't have something that's continually monitoring your gluten, which is why, like, I think I told my girl about it one time, like, oh, maybe I'll get one of those. To her, every single thing that I ever mentioned, like investing in, she's like, that's just another thing you have to spend money on. And I agree. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to be specific, like what's really important and what can I get by with something cheaper.
That's why
I think
I'm not doing it right now.
Yeah, I think test strips right now are fair. I'm not eating 1,000 grams of carbs every day. I'm not taking 40 IUs of Lantus and another 10 plus IUs of Humalog around training or whatever. Like, I don't think it's that significant, but long term, it might be beneficial to get an idea of like, okay, how am I actually managing glucose throughout the entire day? Because that's important for a lot of things. Not to mention, and forgive me if I'm wrong in this, but I'm pretty sure there's some link to those elevated blood sugar levels, whether we're doing it to our healthiest ability, being in the sport of bodybuilding, having constantly elevated blood sugar levels leads to more visceral fat accrual.
100%. Because insulin is the storage hormone of the body.
Right.
So you're going to store more body fat. And that's why if we do get in periods of time where we're using lots of Humalog, lots of Lantus, we have to change the diet. You cannot do 100 grams of fat a day while using that much insulin because you will store a certain percentage of that as literal body fat. So ideally on a high insulin day, because you're not going to want to do high insulin every day, unless you're like, if you're if your base diet is 1,000 grams of carbs, we can start talking. But most of us aren't in that situation. Yeah. But most of us, we're probably going to have 1 to 2, maybe 3 days a week where carbs are high enough to where we actually need to really slam insulin. Right. Yeah, so on those days, we want 0 added fats, like as close to 0 as humanly possible. Some sugary sources are going to be okay there because of how insulin is shuttling everything. We want our protein sources to be as lean as possible because there is, like you were saying earlier about the trace nutrients, the trace macros and things. Chicken breast has fat. 93.7 beef has 7% fat. We want to switch to things like white fish. We want to switch to chicken tenderloins even instead of chicken breast on that day. A whey protein with 0 fat instead of 3 or 4 like most have. Little things like that. Like insulin is not for the novice, in my opinion, because you have to do these different things if you're using it at a high level or even at a moderate level around your diet that are, I don't know if neurotic is the right word for it, but highly specific. Right. So it's just it's a whole thing in and of itself, and I personally like that. I like having this one day that is super different, which my diet's not like that right now. There's no insulin in right now at all, but I personally really like having that high day where everything is drastically different. It keeps things interesting for me personally.
Yeah, that's exactly the carb cycling approach that I took for my last off season. Was you leverage 2 high carb days a week, as close to 0 fat as possible. Protein was at around 1 gram. You could even go lower if you wanted to, but keep it around 1 gram, whatever. And I was eating maybe upwards of up to 1,000, up to 1,100 carbs in those days. And 50% of that could come from simple sugars. Now I would try to branch off towards more of, rice type carb. But most of the sugars that I was getting, I would try to get like no food coloring added gummy bears. Like I like my Black Forest gummy bears because they're as close to natural as possible. I think the only thing that's really in them is corn syrup, really.
You can probably find a way to make your own gummy bears. I've heard of people doing that.
Yeah, probably.
Like with,
other than that,
fruit or something like that. There's all these different things we can do to kind of have fun in the off season that I like to take advantage of. Like I was mentioning earlier, the cream of rice, adding things to that to make it more voluminous, things like that. So you were mentioning earlier. This is kind of the first time where getting all the food in is starting to be challenging for you. What's that like? Can you describe that a bit more?
I wouldn't even call it challenging. I'm just saying that I think that maybe it's some of the Retta and maybe it's just the type of diet that I'm on with more veggies added in post show. I say more veggies. I'm having 100 grams of green beans, 2 meals. And then the rest of the meals are just, there's more variety. I'm having fruits in my final meal, like I said before, just chicken and rice, your body kind of goes through that pretty quick. And so when you start to question like, is there a way that I can add some volume? Well, fruits, veggies, all kinds of things. You can add in fats to slow down the digestion of the carbs, right? So I think just having the variety is slowing things down, but probably just say overall just the food volume being higher, and maybe this is why I kind of go back to I think maybe Retta might have some effect is because it slows down gastric emptying. I'm wondering if I'm just going into the next day still having, not to say some level of gastric emptying, but you'd have to think that digestive process of having, for example, a bowel movement.
Yeah.
I might during prep I might have had just one bowel movement start of the day. Now I'll have like times throughout my day where I'm like, okay, I could go to the restroom right now if I wanted to, where it's not just one compiled,
Yeah. So
if you know what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I am personally the type of way to where if I have 7 meals, I'm going anywhere from 3.5 to 7 times in a day. I don't know if that's normal.
Yeah, it happens. No, I'm not going to say it's not normal. It's a lot of food, dude. And you got to think like every single meal has a window of time it's going to go through your gastric,
Yep. When I was
gastric
eating,
system and eventually be passed through. So if you're eating 7 times a day, you're having 7 potential opportunities to have split up digestive, process going on. So.
Yeah, and when I was eating my peak food 4 or 5 weeks ago, I want to say it was like 6.25, so like 6,200 calories, something like that, close to 900 grams of carbs every single day that I was training. 10-minute walks, the way that I know, other than the glucose reading, like you were saying, the way I know that they're truly impacting digestion is I would do my 10-minute walk and I'd have to run to the bathroom.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Which when you're eating that much food is awesome. That's what you want.
Yeah. Right now, it's almost like clockwork at this moment where I never did fasted cardio before, so now Austin's got me doing fasted cardio.
Oh,
I think that's just preference. Yeah, I used to always just tag it on to the end of training. I didn't really think anything of it. I definitely am not. I'm not one to argue about whether it's better to do fasted or fed cardio. I could see the benefits being fasted.
With lipolytics not being involved, I don't think it matters. But with lipolytics,
I don't think it matters. Yeah.
Dude, you're just gonna be insane the next time you prep.
Yeah, for the next prep. I'll probably be eating more calories and losing body fat that much.
Yeah, you might like legit grow into the show.
Possible. Like I said, it was it just came down to personal preference, and I will admit that I told Austin this. I was like, I think it just came down to, I don't want to call it laziness, but it was time management. I thought that I had the most sophisticated routine possible in a work day where I get 6 hours of sleep, bam, 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 knock all this stuff out, get to the gym, go and do my fasted cardio. But what I didn't account for was I do have a potential opportunity to bring a bag with me to the gym, change into my work clothes, eat my meal at the gym because I've got a microwave there, and drive straight to work. So I was taking extra time getting off from the gym, coming back home, and that takes time. Right. And so where my excuse before was I can't be doing fasted cardio. I need sleep or what. No, this doesn't change anything. I'm still waking up at the same time. The only difference is I have to get my lazy ass on the treadmill first. And what I'm finding though is it gives me time to actually get some fluid in before the meal. Because I try to drink generally at least 32 ounces of water upon waking before a training session, because you're just not hydrated at all, which is why it's important that we're hydrating throughout the entire day. So I'm drinking a gallon and a half, 2 gallons right now. But I'll wake up and I'll drink some fluid and I'll get on the treadmill, and sometimes I get on the cardio and I'll get 12 minutes in and I'll be like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing, right? So
that's what I was gonna say. Another thing on the topic of digestion. Water will flush. It will, because a lot of that water is going to pool in your intestines, right? And you do 32. I have a half-gallon jug. Like I have to get most of my water in the day. So I go to bed around 9:30 or so. My water needs to be completely done by about 5 p.m. Otherwise, I'm up all night using the bathroom because I have severe sleep apnea. So even when I'm wearing a CPAP mask, because if you wake up a lot at night to pee, that is actually a sign of sleep apnea, because it's the easiest way for your body to wake you up when you're oxygen deprived. So I'll have like 2-3 events per hour with my mask on. So
I want to ask you about that.
Okay. Yeah.
The CPAP. So I actually recently just purchased a CPAP.
Nice.
I specifically, I told my girl last off season, she hears me snore at night, but obviously we're not sleeping together now because I'm night shift, she's day shift. So we sleep at different times. But whenever we used to sleep together, she'd hear me snoring, but what she thinks to be sleep apnea is literally choking for seconds and seconds and seconds.
Dude, I would wake up with my throat closed.
Yeah. Now, but that was what happened to me.
It would be like this, like that.
Yeah.
Like that just hurt to do. Imagine doing that for like 30 seconds straight. I would have to run to my fridge and chug water, because for whatever reason that was my primal instinct to open up my throat, and it worked.
Quenching your thirst.
Yeah, I've had that.
Yeah.
Well, just something to open up the airway. I guess that could have gone bad
Okay.
and could have choked on it, but I don't know. I think a lot of it is panic is what's causing your throat to stay closed. But yeah, I had 3 or 4 of those events, and even with that, it's still taken me 5 years to get used to the damn CPAP machine, man. It's not easy.
That's why I was going to ask, because I don't want to make it a whole thing. But so to clarify, my last off season, I got to a peak weight of 254. Got a little bit fluffier than I wanted to be. Obviously, there's always room to improve, and I think that's where I feel like personally I need to have a coach in my ear week by week, watching my check-ins and saying, are we actually progressing in weight in the right direction, or are you just putting on fat? Because that ended up being what happened to me. Is like eventually it just started to turn into like, we're just putting on fat. Like performance of the gym is going up, but fat's just starting to get too high. There should have been at some point where I would have told myself, let's pull back and do a mini cut, but I just kept going. So anyway, my neck is naturally thick. It's like right now it's probably 18 and a half inches around. By end of off season, it's 19 and a half. Like I was wearing double XL shirts, and not even specifically because my freaking arms are too big, which would be a nice situation to have. More so my neck. It just felt like these dang shirts are just too tight around my neck. And so I would get 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep, and it would feel like I was getting 4. And then in the prep, whenever I'm dieted down, I could get 6 hours and feel like I was on top of the world. And I was like, okay, I have to be having some form of sleep apnea, because yes, I know that having just really high carbs in the off season does play a role in some drowsiness, but like there's no way I'm having this much exhaustion on 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, granted, I wasn't falling asleep at the wheel of my car, but it was getting substantially worse. And I did have one incident, which it actually happened to be, I was laying down on the couch, head tilted up, but that's like the worst position for your throat. And I ended up waking up choking, and I was like, what the hell? But I wanted to ask you, because personally, I got the CPAP. I got one of those at-home tests because I did not want to go get a sleep study done.
Yeah.
They were able to diagnose me with sleep apnea. And this was like literally during prep at 210 pounds. So like honestly, the fact that I paid the money to get the sleep test done, where I was at my leanest, most unlikely state to have a sleep apnea event, they were able to diagnose me with sleep apnea, moderate. But I got the CPAP. It's the ResMed AirSense 11. Yep. My issue was I got it. I'm paying installments on it right now, but I got the full face mask thinking like I've got to have the full face mask, because what if I open up my mouth during the night and I'm mouth breathing? Well, I put the full face mask on for the first few nights, dude, and I couldn't, like, me personally, I didn't think I would be claustrophobic, but me just laying there, I could feel the pulse in my head from just the straps being on me. But if I loosened it up anymore, well, then it was leaking. So I gave up on the full face.
Few things there. Number one, how congested are you at night? Because me, I can't even hardly breathe through my nose right now. So full face, only way I can do it. So what's the situation like that for you?
It's hit or miss. So like my job being the way it is, we get exposed to contaminants in the air. So sometimes I could leave work and be clogged up. Now I know it's not consistent enough where I would think it would be negative that I could use nasal spray, because I know you shouldn't use nasal spray every night. Yeah. But I personally don't, but I've almost considered it now, because to caveat off of the full face mask, because I realized this is just too difficult to tackle immediately, I've gone ahead and bought the nasal pillow. Yeah. Which it just sticks up in the nostrils. And I've always worn, well, ever since I started to have sleep issues, I thought, let me try wearing a nasal strip at night. Yes. And that nasal strip, I put that on, and I'll like flare my nostrils a little bit, like force it, and I'll notice it clears up my breathing. That's
and another thing I was going to say. So with me, anytime I break 230, I'm congested all day, every day. Have to take allergy pills multiple times a day, or I'm not breathing on my nose, and that's with a nasal strip. So for me, the nasal pill is just not an option. But if you have I probably have like a deviated septum or some shit. Who knows? But,
yeah.
But if you have a pretty normal nose, I guess. I think with a nasal strip, especially the high dollar ones where you put the magnetic strip here, and then it lifts off of the plastic.
That's one of those investments I haven't made yet, because I've seen those intake breathing ones. Yeah. I'm like, man, I compared those to the Breathe Right strips that I have like through Amazon Subscribe and Save. And I'm like, oh man, that's just so expensive to
now for someone like you with a normal nose to wear, like if I put it on, there's a 50-50 chance that it's just not going to do anything because my nose is so clogged. But for you,
that's my left side mostly.
Yeah, for me it's like both. For you, I think that could be worth it if it really becomes an issue, the whole consistency with the mask. But then another thing on the topic of the leakage from the mask, with the full face. For me, I almost prefer my CPAP full face mask to have a little bit of leakage just so it's not so tight. And I get enough air that way, it seems. As of late, though, I've noticed the opposite. It's weird. It almost seems like the heavier I get, like you would. That's a whole other topic. But basically, now I'm wanting it tighter on my face. I'm wanting a little bit less of that air because I notice with it having that gap in it, it's almost like the air comes out stronger. And then that goes into a whole other topic of there's so many settings you can mess with on this thing, like your air pressure.
I was going to get into that.
Your ramp up time. That's a big thing for me. I have a ramp up time of 45 minutes because I do not want to get blasted. I don't want to get blasted off the
okay.
Because you know if it's like. It's going crazy at you. I don't like that, you know. But if you're kind of you should be asleep by 45 minutes. I would hope, unless you know if we're still.
Oh, I didn't sleep at all with that full face, and I'll tell you, I've learned a little bit more about the machine since. So I stopped the full face, and I have to ask, that full face one, is this the one that actually goes over your nose too? Because I've seen the new one where it kind of sets on the nostrils and on your mouth. Okay, so it's the same.
It's a literal band mask.
The exact same one. Yes. Okay. So I gave up on that after like a week of trying because I think I laid there one night for 2 hours, could not fall asleep. I was like, I used to give up. And I tried.
I've had those nights, and at a certain point, if it's some sleep is better than no sleep. So at a certain point,
I'll just take it off.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
I took it off last night. I took it off last night because I have the nasal pillow now. And I've noticed that I'm able to go without opening my mouth because I won't wake. Because if you open your mouth and you actually open up your nasal passage, you'll start having air shooting out of your mouth with the nasal one on. Whereas if you actually keep your mouth closed, it doesn't. But my issue is I have no problem falling asleep with it on every single night. It's like clockwork. And I'm trying to figure out what is causing me to do it. It'll always tell me on my CPAP that I wore it for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And for some reason, every day I wake up, whether I got 6 hours of sleep or 8, an hour and a half to 2 hours in, I'm pulling it off while I'm asleep, and I have no idea why. And I had to question, is it something to do with the ramp feature? I'm not sure, because I finally ended up figuring out actually the preset settings on it. It goes from 4 to 20. That's the ramp.
Yeah.
The starting pressure versus the top out. I found out that you can actually go into a manual mode and go and adjust the starting pressure because 4 felt like I was actually struggling to breathe.
Yeah, I set it
to 7.
Yeah.
Set it to 7 and it felt great. I was like, okay, now I actually feel like I'm getting enough air to actually even fall asleep. Otherwise, I was having to like focus on getting my heart rate really down first before I could even make 4 work. Well, I'll wear it at 7 now with the nasal one, and I'll fall asleep just fine. But for whatever reason, it's been probably 2 or 3 weeks of trying it now. I'm waking up every single time with it yanked off after an hour and a half. Well, I had nasal congestion last night.
Now,
so I ended up just
are you subconsciously ripping it off, or are you consciously ripping it off?
Unconsciously. I don't even know it's happening, and then I'm waking up and I'm seeing it stuffed into my pillow, and it's still trying to force air, and it's at the max pressure because it thinks it's still
with that, I've done that. You just gotta wrap that bitch up tighter around your face. That's what it is.
I have it so tight too. It's ridiculous.
It
is so tight.
So if you look at Jordan Peters, he'll have these marks from his CPAP mask because that thing's tight up there. That's what you got to do sometimes. And I go through phases with it, man. The entire rebound, perfect. Wore it every night for at least 6 hours. Then I had a couple week period here going into the cruise for whatever reason. I think it's because my peak body weight was still like the heaviest it ever been. I was sitting around like close to 240. I could not wear it. And that's what I was going to mention earlier. It's weird, man. It seems like the heavier I get, the harder it is for me to wear it.
For you to wear it.
You would think.
But you want it to be,
It's like when I actually need it, it's hard for me to wear it, which sucks.
And that's funny because my whole thought process was the last time you want to go ahead and get a CPAP is when your sleep is already shit in the off season. Yeah. So the reason I even went and got the sleep test done during my prep was I was like, I want to have this thing so it's ready to be used, and I'm already used to it before I ever get to that point in my off season where I'm like, okay, my sleep's starting to suffer because I don't want that to impact my ability to recover from training. So I'm gonna keep trying with it. Sure. I'm still considering trying to go back to the full face eventually. I don't think I'm having an issue with the nasal one besides that I'm just taking it off. And like you kind of said, the Bane mask is
Were you ripping off
I wasn't falling. I couldn't fall asleep with the full face ever.
And
Could never fall asleep with
with
it.
the nasal, you're always able, or most of the time, able to fall asleep with it. You just can't keep it on.
Basically every time. The only time I failed was last night. I think my nose was congested, and I was too lazy to get up and get some nasal spray to just open up my airways. But no, like that's just the weird thing. I was telling my girl about it because she's not in the room. I'm not going to sit there and set up a recording because I don't even think I have enough storage for that. But I'd like to see if I'm genuinely like just yanking it off, or if it's just falling off, or what. Because I'm trying to lay on my back too, because I find
I
like
sleep
sleeping
on
on
my
my back's
side
the
with it.
easiest.
I'll snore through it if I sleep on my back.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
and
bad.
I'll try to sleep on my side, but then the way it's set up, this one specifically, the strap goes on top of your head here and it
Yeah.
comes down, but it's not just the strap. It's actually this is the air tube that comes down
Yeah.
to the sides. And so if you lay on your side, well then one of your tubes is like flat and the other one's
Okay.
getting all the air. So I feel like that's affecting how much
It
air I'm
could.
breathing out. Because you
could.
even know like how difficult it feels. Like you
Yeah.
have to turn up the
I think the full face
what is it called?
is probably your best bet, if I'm being honest. And if your hard part is falling asleep with it on, then I would say, are you taking any sleep aids? Like, are you taking melatonin? Are you taking?
Melatonin's the only thing I'm doing right now, and that
How
just
much
recently
stuff?
got incorporated. So that's funny because I've looked into the validity behind buying over-the-counter melatonin, and I've heard that those tabs are not always the same dose. But
Yeah.
supposedly I'm taking 10 milligrams a night, which is like the top end you should be taking. But I'll tell you why I stopped for a long time.
I'm taking
I used
60.
to take 10 milligrams. Wow, I've heard of people doing that. I've heard of people taking a shitload of it. Here's my problem with it. And I just recently started taking it again because Austin recommended it. I'm like, okay, coach, I'm gonna follow everything you tell me to do. And I think he just incorporates that just as like a added benefit of here's a sleep aid. But in the past, mind you, I'm ADHD, and I'm sure it already displays through how I interact and how I talk and how I can go on tangents. I don't realize how long I talk, right? But I don't produce normal amounts of melatonin according to how ADHD is.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask me the nuance in that because everybody seems to have a different opinion on whether ADHD is a blanket term diagnosis or if it's a real thing. I genuinely think there's a chemical imbalance because the way my brain operates and the way that some things are so easy for me and some things are so difficult, and the way that I just everything is different. So one of the things that is an issue with people with ADHD, and I can definitely say during my childhood it was a struggle. That's why I always took melatonin, because I could not fall asleep at night.
Huh.
I like basically like insomnia. I could not. The
Yeah.
melatonin is what, we've actually come to understand that melatonin is not just beneficial for falling asleep, but there's actually some process that we produce it in the mornings when we're waking up
Yep.
with our circadian rhythm. But the way I understand it with sleep, at least, without that production of melatonin, your body's never sending you into that circadian state of saying, okay, it's time to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So for me, as a kid, I struggled a lot and I took it, and I come to realize that I would take it at 10 milligrams or whatever, even down to a milligram actually, and I would always wake up with the worst nightmares ever. And I thought,
Yeah.
there's no way that this is in correlation to melatonin, right? I thought there was no way. Well, then I started doing like my little Googling, a little hypochondriac here, trying to figure out maybe there is some correlation. And then I dropped melatonin. No more nightmares. Now, I don't have them right now.
I'm weird.
Sometimes I will wake up and say, what the hell was that? Whatever dream I had.
I'm weird. I kind of like having nightmares. They're interesting.
You like having that? I've
Yeah.
heard of people saying that. I like having nightmares.
I'd rather have a
Depends on what
nightmare
they
than
are.
not dream. That's the caveat. I'd rather have a nightmare than not dream. Obviously,
Okay. That's a good point.
I'd rather have a happy dream than a nightmare. But sometimes, man, nightmares will give you something to think about. Like, there's almost some truth and some lessons that you can get out of them, unless it's just this weird abstract thing. But to me, nightmares normally relate back to some type of life event I had. So I can almost maybe pull a little bit of wisdom out of a nightmare sometimes. And I find that fascinating.
That's a mature way of thinking too, because I definitely think there was a time where I would have nightmares and I would just wake up almost thinking, like I remember I've had nightmares where I would
Makes me
wake up and,
grateful.
yeah, I would actually be in the nightmare and almost come to a realization that I was in a dream state
Yeah.
and that I was having a nightmare and I couldn't wake myself up, and I was literally begging and pleading, please wake me up because like I feel like I'm in hell right now.
I've always
And then
been
I
a
wake
lucid-
up and say, what the heck? You know?
Yeah, I've always been a pretty lucid dreamer as well too, so I can usually control my dreams to a degree, depending.
To a degree.
Yeah, it depends on what it is, but like, so let's say I have like a terrible nightmare where like, a relationship is lost or something like that. I will wake up, and for the rest of that day, I will be grateful for that relationship, and I will go out of my way. Like if I had a bad dream where something something bad happened to my dad, I'm gonna text him that day and say, "Hey man, I love you," like something like that. Like I like to take stuff like that,
pull the positivity out of it.
Pull the positive from it. Yeah,
it's almost like your brain's trying to send you a message of like, hey, you're taking these people for granted. Yeah, exactly. I get where you're coming from with that. I get where you're coming from with that. I think it just comes down to what the nightmare is.
60 milligrams of melatonin absolutely gives you wild ass dreams. And like I said, I'm a pretty lucid dreamer, so you combine 60 milligrams of melatonin with 10 grams of glycine, with taurine, with usually.
I guess I should have said magnesium. I take magnesium, but I bisglycinate, I think is how it's pronounced, but I've heard that one's really good for
1,000 milligrams of that, and then also growth. Not everybody gets this, but I do. Growth will give me crazy dreams, and then if you're in a prep, Trenbolone will give you really weird. Those are nightmares. Those are nightmares you don't want.
Yeah, I will say that I've had some experiences while being on Tren where I'm like, man, something's just not right with my brain right now. And that's where I've told my girl that I've come to realize 19 Nors are just different. The way that they have their effect on your neurological processes, man, it'll have you thinking some crazy stuff that you won't think any other time.
100%.
Like you could have the most loyal girlfriend in the world, and for some reason your Tren or Deca brain is telling you, yep, she's cheating on me, and just worst case scenario and everything. It sucks.
No, I don't.
And you don't even realize it until it's too late.
Yes, I don't get that, but and this is all retrospectively, because in the moment you never realize it. This is a couple months after. I always realize it just makes me unpleasant. It doesn't make me like aggressive. It doesn't make me an asshole necessarily. It just makes me unpleasant. It just makes me not happy, which is not good. We don't want that. And
100%. I can agree.
Yeah. But I think that's all really good stuff. We talked a lot about diet today, which is awesome. We talked a lot about sleep and recovery. CPAP, big deal. Could have an entire episode just on CPAP and sleep apnea and how that all plays into things. But I think that's enough for the show. We got an hour and 40 minutes here.
Sure.
Hell.
Yeah, sorry for joining so late.
No, you're good, man. You're good, man. It's just the opportunity to be able to do these in general. However we get them done is however we get them done. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk to y'all and put it out there.
Yeah. I'm glad to join in on this. If you want to try to make this a weekly thing, I'll try to make time in my day whenever I can.
Frequently, like again, my schedule, I can plan out my days however I want them. As frequently as you guys are willing to do them is how often I'll do them.
Okay. Well, man, I'll tell you, I'm definitely available coming up this weekend too. If there's
awesome.
If there's any other topics that you want to go over.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to do like a straight up Olympia preview. Like I said, maybe throw a little bit of cheddar cheese into it. Maybe a $10 bet, big money.
Oh Lord, yeah, sure. All politics. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. But yeah, this was fun, man. This was fun. We'll talk after about scheduling for another one, but I think the weekend will definitely work.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your creamy, man. I know you need to get your meal in.
Yeah. I need to eat here, but this has been another episode of the Iron Obsession Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching.